You ever realize the people you trusted were planning to replace you? That thought hit me one morning, long before the sun rose over Austin. My name is Ethan Cole, mid-30s, business development manager at Lumina Dynamics. Or, I guess I should say former manager. But we'll get to that. Back then, Lumina felt like everything to me. It was the place I had poured years of my life into. Long nights, weekends, endless travel, whatever the company needed, I did it. I believed in it. I believed in the people leading it. I thought we were a team. A family, even. But the thing about betrayal is, it never walks in loud. It walks in quiet, soft, almost gentle. Like a shadow slipping into the room, and mine started with a deal I thought would finally prove my worth. A $10 million contract in Dallas, with one of the largest enterprise clients in the region. I had spent months building that relationship. Not the easy kind of months, no. These were the sleep in hotel rooms, live out of a suitcase, stay up past midnight rewriting slides kind of months. I knew their leadership team. I knew their pain points. I knew their goals. And slowly, carefully, I earned their trust. It felt like everything I had worked for was finally lining up, but just when the finish line was in sight, little things began to shift. At first, it was meetings. Meetings I used to lead. Meetings I had scheduled. Suddenly happening without me. I'd walk by a conference room and see people gathered around my client strategy documents. Someone would mumble, "Oh, Ethan, sorry. We thought we sent you the invite." But they didn't. They never did. Then came the emails from upper management. "Hey, Ethan. Mind sending over all your research so we can make sure everything is aligned? Ethan, can you share the full presentation deck in your call notes? We just want oversight." Oversight. Funny word, isn't it? Sounds harmless. But in my gut, it didn't feel harmless at all. A director, someone who barely knew the client, started shadowing my calls. Just sitting silently on the line, not saying much, listening, taking notes. Smiling at me with this strange look afterward. Like he knew something I didn't. I kept telling myself I was overthinking it. That the stress of the deal was messing with my head. That maybe a big win just needed more eyes on it. But the truth? The truth was a lot darker. One morning, I drove to the office extra early. I wanted quiet time before the final Dallas presentation the next week. The parking lot was still empty. The sky was still gray. I walked into the building. And that's when everything snapped into place. Through the glass walls of our main conference room, I saw them, the VP, the director, and someone from legal. The lights were on. Laptops open. Coffee cups already half finished, and spread across the table was my presentation, my research, my notes, slides I built at 2 in the morning, strategies I had designed for months. They didn't even look surprised to see me standing there. Just guilty, quiet, stiff. The VP cleared his throat and said, "Oh, Ethan, didn't expect you this early." His voice didn't match his face. His eyes looked like someone caught doing something they shouldn't be doing. But I didn't confront them. Didn't shout. Didn't ask questions. I just watched. Watched the way they avoided eye contact. Watched the way they closed their laptops too slowly, like they were trying to appear calm. I walked out of the room with my stomach twisted. I knew something was wrong. I just didn't know how wrong. A few hours later, HR called me in. You can always tell when an HR meeting isn't good news. There's this heavy silence in the air. The kind that sticks to your skin. The HR manager looked uncomfortable. She talked in soft corporate phrases. Words like restructuring and shift in department priorities. But the truth was much simpler. They fired me. Just like that. No warning. No explanation that made sense. No chance to finish the deal I had given everything to build. I sat there listening, trying to keep my voice steady. Trying to understand how people I trusted, people I defended, could turn around and shut me out so fast. I collected my things. Walked out of the building I once believed in. Everything I worked for. Taken away in a quiet little meeting. But here's the thing. Here's the part they never saw coming. They fired me before the $10 million deal. They thought the client needed them. They thought they could replace me. But what they didn't know, what they couldn't even imagine, was that the client had already made up their mind, and it wasn't in Lumina's favor. Some moments break you, and some moments wake you up. That's what I remember thinking as I sat alone in my car. The Texas heat slowly fogging up the windows, and a cardboard box of my entire work life sitting on the passenger seat. My name badge. A coffee mug I bought during a tough quarter. A half-used notebook filled with ideas I thought would shape the future of Lumina Dynamics. All of it felt small now. So small compared to the weight sitting in my chest. I couldn't even start the engine. I just sat there, staring at the steering wheel, feeling something I wasn't prepared for. Betrayal, disappointment, anger. But under all of that, something calmer, almost steady. Like the quiet before a storm. I had given everything to that company, and in one meeting, they made me feel disposable, replaceable, forgettable. But somewhere inside, a small voice whispered, "This isn't the end." And then my phone buzzed. At first, I ignored it. Probably another automated message from HR about benefits or paperwork. But it buzzed again. And again, I finally picked it up. And my heart skipped when I saw the name, Mark Stanton, VP of Operations, Dallas Enterprise Group. The client. 3 messages were waiting for me. "Ethan, we're confused. We received emails saying you're unavailable. Is everything all right on your end? We really need you for the final briefing." My breath caught. Unavailable? That was the first lie. They hadn't even waited to fire me before they tried to replace me. I scrolled through the messages with a shaking thumb as a new kind of anger began rising. Not wild, not explosive, but sharp, focused, controlled. The kind of anger that wakes you up. Suddenly, the signs made sense. The shadowed calls. The meetings without me. The VP studying my presentation behind closed doors. They weren't preparing for the deal. They were preparing to take it from me. I leaned back in the seat, staring at the car ceiling, letting the truth settle in. They fired me, so they could take credit for my work. But before that anger consumed me, something unexpected happened next. My phone rang. It was Mark, the client, calling directly. I hesitated for half a second, then answered. His voice came through the speaker, full of concern. "Ethan, what's going on over there? We've been getting messages from Lumina, and none of them sound like you." For a moment, I didn't know what to say. Should I stay quiet? Should I protect the company that had just thrown me out? But they hadn't protected me. So I told him the truth. I took a breath and said, "Mark, I'm not with Lumina anymore. They let me go this morning." The silence on the other end was heavy. Not cold, just surprised. Then he spoke softly. "You're kidding. After all the work you've done for us?" I laughed a little, not because it was funny, but because the situation suddenly felt so ridiculous. "No," I said. "I wish I was kidding." He sighed, one of those long disappointed sighs you don't forget. "Well, that explains the strange emails. They told us you were tied up and someone else would handle the final briefing. We weren't happy about that." Those words hit me like a spark landing in dry grass. They tried to shut me out. But the client wasn't buying it. Then Mark asked the question that changed everything. A simple question, but one that opened a path I didn't even realize was waiting for me. "Ethan, is there any way we can keep working with you directly?" I didn't answer at first. Not because I didn't want to, but because so many thoughts rushed through my mind at once. Months earlier, during a tough period at Lumina, I had formed a small LLC, nothing fancy, nothing serious. Just a backup plan. A maybe one day dream. Half-forgotten paperwork sitting in a drawer. Suddenly, it wasn't forgotten anymore. That quiet feeling inside me, the calm after the betrayal, returned with new strength. And for the first time since I walked out of that office, I felt something powerful. Opportunity. I cleared my throat. Mark, I might have a way. Let me get back to you tonight. He agreed immediately, even sounding relieved. We trust you, Ethan. Not Lumina, you. When the call ended, I didn't feel broken anymore. I didn't feel small or disposable. I felt awake, alive. And as I started the engine, gripping the steering wheel with new energy, one thought repeated in my mind like a rising flame. They thought firing me ended the deal. They thought pushing me out closed the door. But they were wrong. It only opened a new one. A door they never expected me to walk through. Sometimes the scariest moments in life are the ones that finally set you free. That thought stayed with me long after I left the parking lot, long after the shock of losing my job faded into something sharper, something like purpose. I drove home with one thing on my mind. If the client trusted me more than Lumina, then maybe the future didn't belong to Lumina at all. The moment I stepped inside my apartment, I dropped the box of office items on the floor and went straight to my computer. No time to rest. No time to doubt, because if I hesitated, even for a second, fear would catch up to me. And I couldn't let it. Not now. Months earlier, I had formed a tiny LLC, just in case. Just a safety net. Back then, it felt like wasting money. Now it felt like destiny knocking on my door. I searched my email for the LLC documents, opened them, and stared at the screen. My name, my company, my chance. I whispered to myself, all right, Ethan. Let's do this. First thing, I registered a domain. ColdTechSolutions.com. Simple, clean, nothing fancy. Then I spent the next 3 hours building a basic website. My hands were shaking the whole time, not from fear, but from the weight of what I was doing. I wasn't just starting a company. I was starting a new life. As I typed out the About Us page, I caught myself smiling. It felt unreal writing sentences like, we put honesty first. We deliver what we promise. Qualities I lived by, qualities Lumina had forgotten. Next, I pulled up all my research from the Dallas client. Everything I built, my strategies, my slides, my insights, belonged to me. Those were my ideas, my work. I began crafting a polished proposal under my own name. It felt strange removing Lumina's logo and replacing it with my own. Strange but powerful. By midnight, my website was live. My proposal draft was nearly done. And my fear had shifted into something else entirely, hope. Just before 1 a.m., I called my friend Caleb Lawyer, who had helped me form the LLC. He sounded half asleep when he picked up. Dude, tell me this is important. It's more than important, I said. I think my life just changed today. I explained everything, the firing, the client reaching out, the strange emails, the opportunity. He asked a few quick questions, then gave me the answer I desperately needed to hear. There's nothing blocking you. No non-compete. No restrictions. You're completely clear to work with them independently. I closed my eyes in relief. A weight I didn't even realize I was carrying slid off my shoulders. Then do it, Caleb said. You'd be crazy not to. The next morning, the Dallas team emailed me. They wanted an official meeting, not with Lumina, but with my company. Seeing that email made my heart race. Excitement mixed with fear, dancing together in my chest. That afternoon, I drove to Dallas wearing the only suit I owned. No team behind me. No logo on my briefcase. Just me, walking into a massive corporate lobby that felt too big for one person. And I'd be lying if I said I wasn't scared. Every step echoed. Every second felt like someone might tap my shoulder and say, "Sorry, sir, you don't belong here." But I kept walking, because this wasn't Lumina's deal anymore. It was mine. When the elevator doors opened, I saw Mark and the rest of the Dallas team waiting. Mark grinned the moment he saw me. There he is. The guy we trust. I didn't expect those words. They hit harder than I wanted to admit. We shook hands and he guided me into the meeting room. For the next hour, I walked them through my plan, my solution, my strategy, my vision, every nod, every question, every smile of approval. It all reminded me that what Lumina tried to take from me was something they couldn't steal: my relationship with the client, my integrity, my work. Near the end of the meeting, Mark leaned forward, folded his hands, and said, "Ethan, we want the full proposal under your LLC. You've earned this. We trust you more than anyone else." For a second, the room went silent in my mind. No noise, no doubt. Just the realization that my entire future had shifted in one moment. I walked out of that office feeling taller than I ever felt at Lumina. And later that night, when I hit send on the final proposal, I whispered to myself, when I sent that proposal, I knew Lumina had no idea what was coming. A storm was on its way, and I was finally the one holding the thunder. Some victories feel good, and some victories shake the ground beneath your feet. That's what I felt the morning the Dallas client finally called me back. I was sitting at my small dining table, laptop open, proposal sent, heart pounding like a drum. Every hour felt like a day. Every email alert made my pulse jump. Then it happened. A notification flashed. Incoming Zoom call, Dallas Enterprise Group. My breath caught. I clicked join with hands that were way less steady than I wanted to admit. And there they were, 5 leaders from the company, smiling in a way that gave me this quiet, rising hope. Mark spoke first. "Ethan, congratulations. We're moving forward with you." For a moment, I couldn't speak. I just sat there, staring at the screen, letting the words sink in. I did it. I closed the $10 million deal. Under my own name. My own company. My own future. They sent over the contract that same afternoon. When I signed it, something inside me shifted. Years of feeling overlooked, underappreciated, and invisible. All of it felt like dust blown away in the wind. I whispered to myself, "You're not disposable. You never were." That single signature changed my whole life in one quiet click. Of course, good news travels fast. And bad news travels even faster. 2 days later, my phone started blowing up. First, a coworker I trusted. "Dude, management is freaking out. The Dallas deal is slipping. They thought you were just going to disappear." Then another message. "Rumor is the board is furious. Nobody knows what happened." Then one from someone I barely talked to. "What did you do?" They looked like they saw a ghost. I didn't respond to any of them, but inside, I felt something I hadn't felt since the day they fired me. Peace. They expected me to collapse. Instead, I rose. And they didn't even see it coming. That afternoon, a new message hit my inbox. Subject line: "Immediate action required. Legal notice." I clicked it, and there it was, Lumina's leadership, trying to shut me down with a threatening-sounding email. They accused me of breaching loyalty, misusing proprietary materials, and getting involved with a company that belonged to Luma. I read it twice, then I laughed, not because it was funny, but because the desperation dripped off every word. It wasn't a real warning. It was fear dressed as authority. They were scared. Scared of losing the biggest deal they ever had. Scared of explaining to the board how they fired the guy who brought it in. Scared of how weak it made them look. And the best part? Everything they wrote was baseless. Completely empty. So I forwarded it straight to my attorney, Caleb. 10 minutes later, he called me. "They have no grounds. Ignore them. They're just trying to scare you." Hearing that, I felt lighter, stronger, more in control than I ever felt working at Lumina. By the end of the week, the news had spread far beyond Lumina's walls. A former colleague told me, "People in the industry are talking about you. They're calling it the Dallas turnaround. They can't believe you closed the deal solo." Another messaged, "Lumina tried to spin the story, but everyone knows the truth. You won the client. You earned it." The story took on a life of its own, a quiet rumor turning into a loud achievement, and where Lumina expected applause. They got questions. Hard questions. Why did they fire the guy who brought in $10 million? Why did they mishandle the client relationship? Why did a former employee outperform the entire company? Every question pushed the spotlight further away from them and straight toward their mistakes. One evening, sitting alone in my apartment, I opened the signed contract again on my laptop. I stared at my name on the header. Coltech Solutions. Not Lumina. Not the logo that made me feel small. My name. My work. My win. It wasn't just a business deal. It was a moment that rewrote my whole story. A moment where everything they tried to take from me turned into the fuel that pushed me higher. And the best part? They still didn't know. They were panicking in their offices, sending empty warnings, scrambling for answers. But the real shock? The real blow? The one that would leave them speechless? That was still coming, because the moment the final contract papers reached their boardroom, the moment they realized the deal they wanted to steal was officially signed under my company, that was the moment their world would flip upside down. But the real shock for them came when the news hit the boardroom. It's funny how the people who pushed you out always want you back when they're falling apart. That thought hit me one quiet morning as I sipped coffee in my tiny home office, the same space where my new company had been born just weeks earlier. The Dallas contract was in motion, the work was steady. And for the first time in years, I felt like I was building something real. Then my phone buzzed. A familiar name popped up. Karen, VP of Operations. Lumina Dynamics. The message was short, formal, and honestly kind of desperate. "Ethan, leadership would like to have a conversation to clear things up. Please let me know a good time." I stared at the screen for a long second. Clear things up? After they pushed me out? After they tried to replace me before firing me? After they tried to claim the Dallas deal as their own? I took a slow breath, smiled to myself, and typed the simplest reply I could think of. "Thank you for reaching out. I'm not interested. Take care." No anger. No bitterness. Just closure. And it felt good, unbelievably good, to hit send. Later that afternoon, I received a call from Jake, one of the few colleagues at Lumina I genuinely trusted. He wasn't supposed to tell me anything, but the frustration in his voice made it clear he just needed to talk. "Man, you won't believe what's happening over here," he said. "Everything's on fire." I leaned back in my chair, eyebrows raised. "What do you mean?" He took a long breath before answering. "The VP? She's under internal investigation. The board thinks she hid information, mishandled client relationships, and failed to report the Dallas situation." I couldn't help it. I let out a quiet laugh. Not a cruel one, just a surprised one. "And the director?" I asked. "Oh, he's losing it," Jake said. "He's been running around the office trying to explain why the biggest deal of the year slipped out of their hands. He threw 3 meetings just trying to rewrite the narrative." I pictured the director, the same man who shadowed my calls, took my notes, acted like he was preparing to take over the deal. Now he was trying to rewrite history. Poetic. And the CEO? I asked. Jake didn't even hesitate. Furious. He basically said the leadership team destroyed trust with the board. They made the company look careless. And the board? Well, they're not exactly forgiving right now. I sat there, letting all of it sink in. Lumina thought firing me would make them stronger. Instead, it exposed every weakness they had tried to hide. They didn't lose a deal. They lost credibility, trust, reputation, all because they underestimated the one person Who fought to put them on the map? Me. Jake paused, then said quietly, "They're scrambling, Ethan. They're trying to fix things. But it's too late. Everyone knows." While Lumina was falling apart, my world was doing the opposite. Every week, I met with the Dallas team, delivering results, solving problems, showing them exactly why they trusted me. The best part? Word started spreading. The Dallas VP introduced me to a friend in another corporation. A director from Houston asked for a consultation. Someone from a conference reached out after hearing my story. All from word of mouth. Little by little, my one-person LLC began turning into something real. Something respected. Something mine. I'd wake up early, grab coffee, open my laptop, and feel excitement, not dread. Every project, every meeting, every call was a reminder that leaving Lumina wasn't a setback. It was a beginning I never saw coming. One evening, after a long day of successful calls, I sat at my desk and let myself truly reflect. Lumina fired me to take the Dallas deal. They pushed me aside, hoping to claim the reward without doing the work. They underestimated the one thing they didn't think mattered: loyalty. The client never trusted Lumina. They trusted me. And now, the very deal Lumina tried to steal had become the force that exposed their weakness, shook their boardroom, and reshaped my entire future. That's the thing about betrayal. Sometimes it breaks you, and sometimes it builds the fire you didn't know you needed. And for me, that fire wasn't rage. It wasn't revenge. It was clarity. They showed me who they were. And I finally remembered who I was. Weeks passed. My business grew. Lumina stumbled. Clients reached out. And I kept moving forward. I thought the chapter was closed. I thought I had seen the last of Lumina Dynamics, the last of that part of my life. But then, one evening, as I packed up my laptop and turned off the lights, my phone buzzed with a message that stopped me cold. A name I didn't expect. A message I didn't see coming. I stared at the screen, feeling the air shift around me. Just when I thought the story was over, something unexpected happened. Sometimes life brings you back to the very people who tried to stop your rise, just so they can witness how far you've gone. I didn't plan on attending the industry conference that year. I was busy, too busy honestly, with new clients, new projects, and a company that had grown faster than I ever expected. But the Dallas team insisted I come. They wanted me to speak on a panel about authentic client relationships. And the irony of that topic wasn't lost on me. So I went. The conference hall was huge, hundreds of booths, polished glass displays, banners of every major tech company. For the first time in a long time, I walked into a place like that feeling confident. Not worried about impressing anyone. Not afraid of being judged by my title, because now, my title was simple and powerful: founder, CEO, owner of my own success. I was walking toward the main floor when I heard someone behind me say my name. "Ethan?" I froze for a split second. I knew that voice. I turned around slowly. And there they were. My former VP, the director who shadowed my calls, and the CEO who approved my firing, all three of them, standing together, looking right at me. For a moment, the world felt strangely quiet, like time paused just long enough for me to notice the shock on their faces. The VP blinked fast, trying to recover first. "Oh, Ethan. Wow, it's been a while." The director gave a stiff smile, the kind you give when you're trying to pretend nothing happened. The CEO crossed his arms, his expression unreadable. I simply nodded. "Good to see you all." And it was good. Not because I missed them, but because I finally saw them from a place of strength. Not fear. The VP stepped closer, her voice a little too bright. "We've heard a lot about you lately. Your new company seems to be doing very well." She said it with a smile, but her eyes told a different story: surprise, discomfort, maybe even regret. The director chimed in. Yeah, the Dallas deal. Impressive. Very impressive. I could hear the tension in his voice. He used to treat me like an assistant. Now he was speaking to me like someone who outranked him. The CEO finally asked, "So what brings you here? Business or just visiting?" I smiled calmly. "Speaking on a panel and meeting with a few partners." Their eyebrows lifted at the same time. They weren't expecting that. There was a long, awkward pause before the VP cleared her throat and said something I never imagined I'd hear. "Ethan, would you consider consulting for Lumina? Even part-time? We could use someone with your experience." For a second, I almost laughed. Not out of cruelty, just disbelief. The same company that pushed me out, the same people who thought they could replace me, were now asking if I could help them recover. I let her words settle. Then I answered, steady and polite, "I appreciate the offer. But no, I'm focused on my own clients now." No heat, no anger, just a clear, firm answer. The VP nodded slowly, swallowing the awkwardness. The director shifted uncomfortably. The CEO looked down, then back up, as if searching for something to say. But there was nothing left to say. We had reached the end of our story. I shook their hands respectfully, calmly, and then turned to walk toward the next hall. As I walked away, something settled deep inside me. For months, I carried the weight of what happened at Lumina. The betrayal, the shock, the feeling of being pushed out and dismissed. But standing in front of them again, stronger than I had ever been, I realized something important. They didn't break me. They revealed me. They pushed me out and accidentally launched my future. My rise didn't happen despite them, it happened because of them. Sometimes the people who doubt you the most end up being the ones who fuel your greatest success. I stepped onto the Sika conference stage later that day. Lights shining, audience waiting. And I felt no anger, no bitterness, only clarity, only pride, only gratitude for the strange, painful, unexpected path that brought me there. And as I began speaking to the crowd, I thought to myself, this is what closure feels like. A full circle moment. A reminder that justice doesn't always come loudly. Sometimes it comes softly, in the form of peace you never expected. Sometimes the ending you fear becomes the beginning you needed. That thought came to me months after everything had quieted down, after the conference, after the Dallas deal was fully underway, after my new company found its rhythm. I was sitting in my small office one evening, the sun slipping behind the buildings outside, turning the whole sky gold. It was one of those rare moments when everything is still and you finally have time to breathe and think. For the first time in a long time, I let myself reflect on the journey. All of it, the betrayal, the shock, the fear, the rise, and strangely, I didn't feel anger anymore. I didn't feel resentment. What I felt was clarity, a kind of understanding I didn't have before. Because when I looked back at everything Lumina did, everything they tried to take, everything they tried to shut down, I realized something important. They didn't just push me out. They accidentally pushed me forward. I thought about the day they fired me, that cold meeting room, the tight smiles, the empty explanations. Back then, it felt like the world collapsed. It felt like everything I built was erased in one quick moment. But now, standing on the other side of it, I could finally see the truth. That moment didn't break me. It redirected me. If they hadn't pushed me out, I never would have built my own company. If they hadn't tried to replace me, I never would have seen my own value so clearly. If they hadn't betrayed me, I never would have learned the most life-changing lesson of all. Sometimes people push you out because they're afraid of how high you might rise. Not because you're weak, but because you're strong. Not because you're failing, but because you're succeeding. Not because you don't belong, but because you outgrew the place you were in. Once I understood that, Everything made sense. I leaned back in my chair and thought about who I was back then. A guy who stayed late at the office, hoping someone would notice. A guy who gave everything, convinced loyalty would be returned. A guy who believed hard work alone would protect him. And then I thought about who I had become. A man who built his own path. A leader who earned trust without a company name behind him. A person who stopped waiting for permission to rise. That transformation didn't happen because life was easy. It happened because life pushed me hard. And instead of breaking, I learned how to bend and then stand stronger. As I stared out the window that night, I imagined speaking to someone who might be going through the same thing. Someone who feels replaced, overlooked, or shut out. And I knew exactly what I wanted to say. Stand up for yourself. You don't have to shout. You don't have to fight dirty. Just stand. Just believe in the value you carry, even if others pretend not to see it. Don't let others define your worth. People will try. Companies will try. But their opinion of you is not the truth. Your work, your character, your effort, that is the truth. And when a door closes, don't assume it's rejection. Sometimes it's direction. Sometimes it's life nudging you toward something bigger, something you never considered, because you were too busy trying to stay where you were. What happened to me wasn't punishment. It was preparation. Before leaving the office that night, I pulled up the Dallas contract one more time. There it was, my name, my company, my signature. I remembered how terrified I was the first day I started this journey. How unsure. How alone. Now, I wasn't alone. I wasn't unsure. And I definitely wasn't afraid. I shut off my laptop, grabbed my coat, and stood by the window one last time. The city lights flickered like a quiet reminder that the world keeps moving. And so should I. And in that moment, a final thought settled in my chest. Calm, strong and true. They thought firing me would end my story. They never realized. It was just the opening chapter. A new beginning born from a painful ending. A rise built from the rubble of betrayal. A life shaped not by what they did to me, but by what I chose to do next. If this story pulled you in, if you felt the betrayal, the rise, and the justice, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. There are more stories coming. Stories of people who were underestimated, pushed aside, and came back stronger. And remember, sometimes the setback you fear is the beginning you need.